that shift was a comfortable one. And then, with time, as a slightly older art student, did you go abroad when you had begun teaching, or was it before that?
No, after that. Naples was a very good experience.
How long were you there for?
1 academic year.
So you were at the art school in Naples.
And though Naples is a backward area in a way, when you compare with northern Italy, they have 2 excellent museums. It allowed us to be in museums most of the time.
So that's what I actually wanted to even know. How did, having already studied in Baroda, and Baroda does, even till today, really insist on certain skills, drawing, whether diploma, otherwise art history. When you went over there, did you find that you had a kind of continuity to your own desire of your own journey as an artist, or did you go with something specific where you wanted to learn a mural technique, or were you wanting to do something specific related to being in Italy, or was it just an experience to continue with the process of learning?
It was art school where we were allowed to work, but I was not really part of any course or any school. So I was just doing whatever I wanted to do, and I completed my study in Baroda in 1959. I did 6 years, diploma and post-diploma, and then also 3 years later in cultural scholarship. And then I had started working, so I in a way continued in the same direction. I also did my first etching there in Italy. I had never done etching, so that was the opportunity. And I also started doing abstract kind of photography. Abstract means non-figurative in that sense. Because I was very much impressed by works by Italian painters and Spanish painters, Antonio Tapies and Alberto Duri and the very heavy textures and surfaces that they were making. And then I found that their inspiration was perhaps all around. So in Naples, because it was not hardly 15 years after World War II, and it was still in that shape.
Things had
the scars were still visible.
Yes. You could feel the history of that. Yes.
So, and I thought that this could be their inspiration, the walls and surrounding. When I went to USA 2 years after returning, my earlier prints were again continuation of what I had done in Italy, and also went to Paris and London also during that period. So that was a very good experience.
Did you travel alone or with friends?
No, alone.
Alone. That's an interesting choice to make. So you actually really confront a reality without any protection whatsoever. Absolutely. Tell me a little bit, sir, you talk about your first introduction to, say, etching. One of the things that, is a factual reality with you is that as an artist you had many different areas that are major for you. They're not sort of incidental. Printmaking, photography, obviously, painting. And I also know that you often collaborate with Jostame on ceramics. Whether to make it or to add to it is immaterial. But there is this, many things. Plus, you've also been somebody who writes. Maybe it's not a passion, but you do that, and you have contributed a lot to that. How has it been to, you started off in the simple procedure of being a painting student, and then you slowly opened up your world through your own choice. How, for example, did the camera become such a cherished part of such a cherished tool? When did you first handle a camera?
Though I had seen people using it, and in library we were getting magazines, so that way I was familiar with what was happening then in photography. One of the friends who had come to Baroda from Bhavnagar had gone to Germany. So So I requested him to bring some small camera for me when he was returning. So he got me a Voigtlander or some German camera, which he thought was very good, but I didn't know how to use it because it had no focusing arrangement. No, you had to guess the distance and put it. So I tried. Then another friend of mine, he had a bigger camera, and he didn't know how to use that, and he didn't like the bigger one. So we exchanged. That's how I started using camera. So,
was it something that was economically viable? Because somehow one has this idea that photography is, especially when it was the era of film, was expensive. And I know that all of you were, living within modest means, by choice sometimes. And art as an independent commercial space was not what we know of it today. So basically all of you were teachers or, getting some income from your art. So was this not considered, expensive thing to be working with?
Apart from the camera, it was not really very expensive, because a film roll would cost maybe 2-3 rupees then, but the 12 frames means you can use it for a month to make 12 pictures. It was not that the way people photograph it today, using cameras. Then everything else I was doing it myself, learning darkroom technique, processing and printing. So then it became, it was not that expensive.
Taking all these factors into consideration.
And then doing it ourselves because we knew what we wanted in that painting for the photograph. In fact, that's what I did for many years, photographing, recording paintings done by my friends.
When did you start this enjoyment of, you talk about the camera and, initially you're doing a mural, you start recording it. But especially when I look at this particular show, Subtextual Documentalists, and what we have put together in a collaborative space of choosing, there is something very particular about the way you started looking through that lens. There is a recording that is definitely of a nature that is to do with the way an artist looks at something. It is not dry, it's extremely intimate. I know that many times we don't necessarily make conscious choices and say, today I'm going to be looking in this manner. But I'm sure that in the process of the way you were using your camera, some of these decisions, some of these ways of looking became things that you as an artist understood and then therefore were able to deliver.
I'm not very sure that I was aware of the documentation value of what I was doing. In fact, one of my friends, who is like my guru, Bhupendra Karya, we worked together for 2-3 years between 67 and 70. So I was regularly meeting him and showing what I had done during that period. And he had made a remark that my old photographs looked very much alike. Also during another exhibition which I had with Raghav Kanaria and my photograph, one photographer had said that when we look at these pictures, we know which one is yours and which one is Raghav Kanaria's. So there was something about my photograph which other people look different.
Absolutely.
So then I tried to think my kind of frames. A frame is a term we use normally for photograph, which is in a way equivalent to composition or design in painting.
How do you know what you want to put inside a frame when you're looking through a lens? How do you know what is it that decides that for you?
I think the basic difference that I see between painting and photograph. Painting is empty surface, and we keep on adding and putting inside whatever we want to put it. So it's like packing a box. Photograph, where there is so much in front of you, and you are selecting an area that makes some sense. In fact, when we started our studying still life and life study, this device was used. We were making a small window in a piece of paper.
Absolutely.
In proportion
Yes.
to the front page.
Yes.
And select the area which we want to include and how we wanted to compose that figure
Yes.
or face or whatever. So that part I had already learned without using camera.
What is quite spectacular for me as a viewer is to see, especially in the works that are not constructed, in the photographs that are not the portrait, that where the subject gives you their time. But in the spaces of imagery where you have held a group by being part of it and then placing the camera between you and the group, between you and the subject. And you have in all these works hold a kind of narrative. They tell a story that is a story that allows its relevance to be there beyond its time. And it's not only because these are interesting moments of cultural history or that these are in many ways well-known, established people who make up, who make up what contemporary art history is about for all of us. But it's also the way you frame them. I think, without being apologetic or being self-effacing about it, I think you have an ownership, a sense of authorship is there. At least you recognize that when you look at them at a later stage.
I don't think I was really aware of what was happening because I was part of them and because they had always seen me with camera. They were not interested in me or camera the way I had problem.
Yes.
So they continued what they were doing. I was not identifying that they were ignoring me, but they could
because they were so comfortable with you. They were so comfortable with you. I'm still going to persist a little bit because I think that the interesting thing about any well-framed moment is also in recognizing that moment is to be framed. So, do you, as I say, looking at it now, do you recognize that you have either instinctively or deliberately known those moments? For example, if I look at intimate spaces where there is a conversation between Ghulam Mohammed Sheikh and F.L. Souza, and you have a common friend, Maya Shastra, positioned in the center. The way that photograph, for example, has been taken is sort of cinematic. It tells stories beyond what belongs to those individuals. But that comes very much from a trained eye. That comes from you being the artist, the painter, the printmaker that you are, the photographer that you are. So I think that knowing how to also place yourself.
A person like Henry Cartier, who was very much aware of decisive movement. But I don't think I was really aware. It's like people started finding in Ravi Verma's painting gaze. Now I'm almost sure that it was the people later. Ravi Verma himself, I don't think was ever conscious of that part.
But I take you back to what you were talking about in terms of other people recognizing that if they had to see a photograph of yours, they instinctively knew that it was yours within other contemporaries that were also perhaps showing their work. So let's take it to a space of language, which is a more interesting space because it then will allow us to also look at painting and printmaking as well. I again will recall, and I spoke about this the other day with you, that as your student of painting and then of photography, I remember you very clearly saying this to me about the importance of knowing one's own contemporary time, one's own contemporary ethos, one's own contemporary surroundings. And it was said very casually that something that was a statement of such conviction that obviously it's something that you yourself as an artist, as a teacher, believed very strongly in. There are many artists who obviously influenced by their time, but very often the influences can include things that take you back in time. With your work, right from the time of you being, a student or that passage of time, to what you do today, there is this concurrent, this very prevalent position of you always being in the here and the now, whether it's to do with technology, whether it's to do with the way you address ideas of liberal thinking. It all is to do with the way you have been a teacher, the kind of disdain you have for old orthodoxies or power structures or hierarchies. All this really talks about how you prefer to be in the here and now. I want to tie that up to say to you, this obviously was something that you enjoyed, going through a period of time as an artist, making discoveries and evolving a language. What do you say about that? How did you place yourself all the time with an interest within the here and the now?
I think by becoming or remaining bourgeois all the time, one has to strive very hard either to become very orthodox or become very modern. I think both these directions are to me problematic and pretentious also. Whatever was around me, and being short-sighted, I couldn't see much beyond that probably. I just accepted. Only thing, there are many things I couldn't do because there were monetary restraints. That in a way control, it became like rain. There is a beautiful couplet by Kabir, though it's probably what he meant was God. When I was there, you were not there, and now you are here, I am not here. But I take it very literally, that when I had ideas and ability to do it physically, money was the problem. Now that is not the main problem anymore, but other part is gone. So that in a way controlled, otherwise probably I could have done much more. But otherwise, I have not really thought of bourgeois if somebody said, and people have said, and I have taken it as compliment. That's what I want to be. Some people say that it's a Buddhist way of life, which since I don't have that kind of a religious attitude, comparing everything, but I have heard that he preferred middle way. And that's not by choice, I think it's nature.
By circumstance sometimes?
Circumstance is some kind of a cowardice. But I was also told, there are two attitudes. My father was very adamant for everything, and again going back to Saurashtra, his couplets, something that one would prefer to break but not bend. On the other hand, Bandesar, who had gone to China and came back and he was talking about Tao, he said that a grass or blade remains intact because in wind it prefers to bend, or if there is a gush of water. So I think I, without thinking much, selected the easy way out. One thing I do not like, at least consciously I never pretend. Try to say something which really not done but to impress others. That I know, sometimes it's better to blow up your own image, but I never liked that. And I am very bad at it. If I try, then you have to be a good actor, which I am not.